This is the kind of sequel that looks like it learned everything from the first game. But that also means it might double down on the exact things that frustrated people. GRIME 2 launches March 31st, developed by Clover Bite and published by Kwalee. And right away, you need to understand what this game is aiming for. This is not just a Metroidvania, it's a very specific mix of Metroidvania exploration and Souls-like combat. And if that combination clicks with you, this could be one of the most interesting releases in this space this year. But if it doesn't, you'll feel it quickly. At its core, GRIME 2 builds around a really unique idea. You don't just defeat enemies, you absorb them. You play as something called a formless, basically an entity that learns by consuming others, turning enemies into molds that you can use in combat or exploration. And that's where the game immediately stands out, because instead of just upgrading stats or swapping weapons, you're constantly reshaping your playstyle based on what you absorb. Some enemies become projectiles, others turn into summons, others give you utility abilities. When that works, it creates a really satisfying loop. You fight, you learn, you adapt. And that constant evolution can make the game feel fresh for a long time. But there's also a risk here, because systems like this can become overwhelming if they're not balanced properly. Too many options, too many abilities, too many systems layered on top of each other. And suddenly, instead of experimenting, you're just trying to keep up. Now let's talk about combat, because this is not a casual experience. GRIME 2 leans heavily into timing, positioning, and reading enemies. You've got parries, dodges, and this mechanic where you send out hand-like tendrils to either block or absorb attacks. And if you've played the first game, you already know what that means. This is going to be tough. Not unfair, but demanding. And that's a big positive if you enjoy that kind of challenge, because when the combat clicks, it feels incredibly rewarding. You start recognizing patterns, reacting faster, and turning what used to feel impossible into something you can actually control. But at the same time, this kind of combat can feel slow or heavy to some players. Even early demo feedback mentions that enemies can feel a bit tanky, and the pacing can lean more deliberate than fast-paced action. So if you're expecting something quick and fluid right away, you might need time to adjust, and that adjustment period matters. Now, one thing the game clearly nails, at least from what we've seen, is its world. This is easily one of the most visually distinct Metroidvanias out there. Everything is surreal. Strange structures, bizarre environments made of things like giant vases and abstract materials, cultures built around art and form. It's weird, but in a very intentional way. And honestly, that's a huge selling point, because exploration isn't just about finding new areas, it's about seeing what the game comes up with next. But again, there's a flip side. When a game leans this heavily into abstract design, readability can become an issue. If enemies blend into the environment, if hazards aren't immediately clear, if the visual style gets in the way of gameplay clarity, that can become frustrating, especially in a game that demands precision. And some early player reactions already hint at that concern, mentioning that the character and background can sometimes blend visually in certain scenes. Another thing worth thinking about is structure. This is a non-linear game. You're exploring, unlocking paths, finding secrets, building your character over time. Which is great, but non-linear design also means you can get lost. You might not always know where to go next. You might hit difficulty spikes depending on the path you take. You might feel like progression slows down at times. For some players, that's part of the appeal. For others, it's just frustrating. And then there's the big question every sequel has to answer. Does it actually improve on the first game? Or just give you more of it? From what we know so far, GRIME 2 is expanding everything. More abilities, more enemies, more systems, more world building. But expansion isn't always improvement. If the pacing isn't tighter, if the combat doesn't feel smoother, if the systems don't feel more refined, then more doesn't automatically mean better. So here's what it really comes down to. You should consider buying GRIME 2 if you enjoy challenging, methodical combat, if you like experimenting with builds and abilities, and if you want a Metroidvania that actually tries to do something different. But you might want to wait if you prefer faster gameplay, clearer direction, or something that's easier to pick up and play without a learning curve. Because this game is not trying to simplify itself. It's leaning deeper into what it already is, and that's either exactly what you want or exactly what you should avoid. So what you're about to see next is the part that matters most. No talking, no opinions, just gameplay. Watch how the combat flows, watch how the movement feels, watch how readable or unreadable the world is. Because with a game like this, you don't decide in theory, you decide by how it feels.
Шалавы, чуть ногу.